So, around that period when Jim McLaughlin arrived at the club, you started becoming a regular at Oriel Park.
Yeah, my earliest memories of the experience of supporting Dundalk would have been the reception. I wasn't at the 77 Cup final, but I do recall meeting the team coming up over Hill Street Bridge and down to, I think they went into the town hall if I'm not mistaken, and they were celebrating on the stage, and so that was the first real buzz that I got of it. And it was probably the following year or the year after then I started actually attending Oriel. I was only 12, 13 at the time.
79 was your first cup final, I believe.
Absolutely, yeah. It was quite the day. It was probably my first big away trip, you know, only 14 or whatever at the time, and you know, on the bus, I don't even know whose bus it was. Again, you know, it was just a case of there used to be a fleet of buses going up to those games, so I was probably from Oriel, piled onto the bus, and I think there was slight delay somewhere down the line, probably around Ashbourne for whatever reason, you know, the usual. And we arrived then just in time for the first goal, and again, quite vague in that I was quite young at the time, you know, so I do remember the goals and the celebrations, but again, it was back to the town and then waiting for the team to return and hanging off the sides of the buses and stuff, you know. It was good times.
It's well documented about your serious knee injury which cut short your time in England, but can you tell us how the move to Dundalk came about when you came back to Ireland and were playing in the Leinster Senior League?
Yeah, sure. I mean, I came back in '75 and I was told couldn't play any contact sports again, so I accepted that and didn't do anything for 3 years, till about 78, 79. And I bumped into Jim McLaughlin one day in Drogheda. He was going around delivering stuff, and he knew me, and I started to chat to him, and he said, did I ever go to Bobby McGregor in Belfast? And I said, no, hadn't probably even heard of him really. And Jim said, I'll set it up for you. So they were playing Glentoran. He was the physio with Glentoran, and they were playing Bows in a friendly pre-season. So Jim arranged for me to go up. I went into the dressing room after, saw McGregor, looked at the knee. He said, oh, I seen fellas with worse knees than that playing. I kind of looked at him and said, no, I don't think you know the history here. So anyway, he said to me, had to go down to Belfast. He used to go to the games and he'd see me after the games, and then when he got to know me he used to go to the house, and he was with the Northern Ireland team as well, so they were playing the Republic in '79, and I met them out in Killiney. They were staying there, and he gave me this bottle of stuff. Had to put vinegar and water on it one night and this other stuff on it another night. It smelled like wintergreen. It was a creamy kind of stuff. And I had to do that for about 9 months. I was up and down to him. And then he said to me one day, it's time to try it now. So I trained at Lourdes Stadium with Jerome Clark. He was at Drogheda at the time. And then a chap called Paddy O'Neill asked me to play with CIE. They played up at the back of the station in Drogheda in the Leinster Senior League. So I said, yeah, give it. I just wanted to play football. I didn't care whether it was with, you know, Man United or CIE. It didn't care. It was just to play football.
It's amazing how Mick came back, because I was working in Blackthorn shoes at the time, and there was a mechanic called Paddy O'Neill who later come to Dundalk with Dermot Keeley. And he was telling me, I got talking to him, he says he's over CIE in Drogheda, and he says Mick Fairclough, I had him playing and he scored 6 goals for CIE. And I happened to mention Jim McLaughlin. I think it was Jim McLaughlin and Pat Darcy went up to have a watch him, and they signed him. So me and Mick got on very, very well together.
The next game, Jim arrived. I was kicking out before the game, and I saw Jim coming in. I said, what the hell is he doing here? So anyway, he come to me after the game. He said, would you be interested in coming up to us in Dundalk? And I said, yeah, but I hadn't had a good game that day actually. And I came up the next day, met him and Mick Lawler, and signed with them and played in the reserves. I think I scored 2 against Waterford, and then he put me on the bench against Rovers, and we we were second. We needed to get the second spot to get into the Europe, and it was vital that we got something in against Rovers. And it was 1-0. I think it was about 10 minutes to go, 15 minutes to go. Jim just said to me, "Go on, do your best. You know, just give it a go." I was only on the field a couple of minutes, and we got a free kick. And Pop Flanagan floated it in, and I just came in on the near post, and it flew actually into the corner of the net. And then, of course, there was a whole big thing about super sub and all that at the time. But I played in the team then, more or less from then till the end of the season. I think I got 6 or 7, maybe 4 or 5 goals in the 5 or 6 games that were left. And then, of course, the following season, then I started into the team in earnest, and more or less held my place then from then on, you know.
As you say, Mick, 1980-81, you carried the good form into that season, and the team won the President's Cup and the League Cup. How important was it to get into that sort of winning habit, picking up silverware?
Yeah, well, obviously, you know, when you start off, you want to start with winning, because if you have a bad start, you're catching up all the time. So it was very, very important to win those little bit of silverware early on. We had a very strong defence at the time. You were very confident going out that you wouldn't concede many goals. So there was a little bit more pressure on the front men to get something, because, you know, if you're going to win a game, you have to score. So that was kind of the kind of a team we were, very strong at the back, strong in midfield, and then you were hoping that you would get goals up front, and that's thankfully where I fitted in, you know.
I'm sure growing up, that back four and Richie Blackmore in goals, that was the sort of bedrock that team was.
Yeah, it was a legendary back four, you know, and there was always a major sense of pride for us, myself and a few of the lads, because we were from Fathermary Park, and Tommy Mack was brought up around the corner, you know, so, you know, even just knowing somebody of that stature, you know, around the place was really cool, like, you know, and Tommy was, and Dan McKeely, you know, was just seriously cool defenders, you know. We never thought we'd see the like again, obviously, up until recent years, we didn't, you know. It was amazing to come up to Oriel every Sunday and watch those guys in action.
The cup run itself, obviously Hammond Lane and St Pat's after a replay, that set up a game against Rod United, the first time the two clubs ever met in the FAI Cup. What are your memories of those games? I know you were injured for the second one, but the first game at United Park, what can you remember from that?
Yeah, Drogheda were very strong at that time. They were a very physical team. The first game was very tight. There wasn't much in between the teams. I got a bit of a buffeting. You know, there was a lot of, what shall we say, hard tackles on both sides. But with my knee the way it was, you know, I just picked up an injury, and that really came against me for the second game. But yeah, it was a tough, hard game, and you'd always expect that between Dundalk and Drogheda. But in a cup match, you know, it was obviously going to be that more at stake, and therefore probably the tackles were flying a bit harder than maybe they would have normally, you know.
I didn't play in the first game, and they played in the second game. The first game was very, very, very physical, and I think Mick Fairclough, and there was a lad from Scotland. I just don't know his name at the moment. Tommy Bryce was his name, and the two boys there were two centre halves. There was a fellow called Ferguson and Kerr, and they were two big strong men. But I got in the next game, me and Brian Duff, and we got in and we got a 1-0 win, and it was physical enough, but I didn't mind when it was physical. That was kind of my game, so that's how it happened.
You come back for the semi-final against Finn Hobson, ironically at Milltown again. You scored the winner, Willie Crawley, I believe, and forced the goalkeeper into a save, and you were there to convert a rebound.
Yeah, Willie always says to me, you know, always give me the credit for all the assists I gave you when you were playing, which is very true. Willie was a great battler up front, and I picked up a lot of chances from, you know, his knocking balls down and stuff. And yeah, it was a simple goal enough, but it was very important. Harps were a very strong physical side as well, and there wasn't much between the teams that day either. So we just were able to eke out that win, and the one goal thankfully put us through to the final.
I was reading then the semi-final in Milltown against Finn Hobbs. I was reading it was your 22nd birthday that week. You started the game, your shot led to the goal that led to the winner with Mick Fairclough scoring it. Do you remember?
I can remember it well. I can still see me turning, having a shot, and the goalkeeper palming it out, and Mick was like a rat up a sewer pipe, scored. Yeah, I remember as well. I can still see it to the day.
What was it like playing with Mick?
Mick was good lad, Mick. Still is to the day, like, you know, very, very good lad. Great player, lightning quick, brave as you'll get.
Tell us about 81, Frank. I believe you had a bit of a predicament on the day of the final itself.
Yeah. I wasn't much of a one for the books, you know. So I left school at 16, and I was working in a well-known pub in Dundalk, up in Park Street, which are made nameless. And obviously, just doing the dates, I would work every second Sunday. So I was working it out. If we get to the final, would I be off? And then it turned out that I wasn't. So had to wait till after the semi-final to approach the owner to see if I could get the day off. And he told me, okay, come back to me next week. So he kept saying this week on week. So only the Friday night before the final, he told me, no, can't get the day off. And it's fair to say I wasn't best pleased. So said it to the mum, and she says, you ain't leaving the job. You left school, so you ain't leaving the job. So I had a predicament whether or not to go into work. So on the Saturday, went in, got to the door, and I just couldn't do it. So I says, I can't go home without a job. So I made my way down to town, just seeing where am I going to go. Got to get a job before I go home. And lucky enough, went into HF&J McCann's. My mate worked there as a baker, and GAA legend Peter Brannigan from the Clans, he was one of the managers at the time. And I approached Peter, and he said, lucky enough, he says, there's just a spot opened up. You're more than welcome to it next week if you like. So that was that. The bar work was finished, and I was in the bakery for a good 12 years after that. So yeah.
That made the trip to Dalymount a lot easier.
Oh man, it was twice as good. You know, it was the buzz was just fantastic. You know, because I wasn't that keen on the bar work anyway. You know, and just the thoughts of getting out and new job coming, going with the mates. Like my brother worked in MJ's in Park Street, and Matt would run all the buses to away games and all that kind of stuff. So the bus from MJ's was the cup final bus that we went on.
What was your memories of the day itself as a 16-year-old up in Dalymount?
Yeah. If I'm not mistaken, now the weather was pretty good that day, and we all got up, and unlike the previous '79 final, we were up in good time, and we were all on the terrace, which would be opposite the Jody stand as we see it now, and the crowds was just phenomenal. I've no idea what even the crowd was at the time, but it seemed like everybody in Dundalk was there. It was just fantastic, and everybody decked in black and white. And again, just the anticipation and it was just fantastic. You're really buzzing for it that stage, 16, and Sundays and cup finals and that kind of stuff. It was just what you live for, fantastic.
Yeah, there was a lot of press beforehand, and we were the red hot favourites. So, I mean, Jim pointed out to us beforehand, like if we win, we're not really going to get that much credit, but if we lose, it's going to be a huge upset. And then, with the way the game started, and Tommy and Dermot clashing heads the way they did, it was looking very, very dodgy, because we actually thought we might lose the two of them before the game. It was only a few minutes on.
Well, my first memory is with Tommy Mack and Dermot Keeley running into each other, going for the same ball, and the blood everywhere. And the game was stopped, and people were just thinking, can these boys go on, or they're coming off like a stitches or something? But Tommy Mack is probably the best player in my lifetime that ever played in Oriel Park, for Dundalk. And Dermot was Dermot. Like, Dermot was a real leader, real warrior, organising, and he was lightning quick, Dermot, so we needed them two players. But they come out as usual and stayed on, and we won 2-0.
Really, the ball was just lobbed over the top of us, and normally it's my job and there'd be no problem. But I think the situation being, Tommy didn't want to leave it and I didn't want to let it go. It was just, I suppose, the nerves of the first few minutes. Neither of us wanted to make the mistake, and we just clashed. And
there was a terrible wind that day. It really did spoil the game as a football spectacle, because there was a gale of wind blowing, and You know, it was a tough game. I mean, Sligo really did come at us. I mean, Charlie McAlevey was a young fullback, and he was pure class, great lad. And you know, he had a couple of chances. Brendan Bradley, I remember, Richie made a super save from a header from Brendan Bradley, and you know, they definitely gave probably even better than we did in the early part. I mean, when John Archibald got the goal, it was a touch of luck to it. I mean, it was a fantastic corner, but the way the wind was blowing and the way he hit the ball, it was probably a complete freak in one way. It wasn't a goal that came from you know, a 10-pass build-up and slotting into the net. It was, you know, a corner kick that in most cases would be cleared or would be taken by the keeper, but the way the wind was that day, it just went in, and of course that took the pressure off us big time. I mean, you know, once that went in, we actually started to play a bit better and get the ball down and play a bit of football, you know.
The goals, do you remember the goals in John Archibald scored from the corner?
Yeah. Well, obviously, you know, when you're there, you didn't know if it actually went straight in, you know. But we know, Todd, I'm not sure who it was on the line. Todd might have clipped it, but yeah, straight in, and sure, celebrations were frantic, as you can imagine, you know. Just the place went crazy. I think you probably fell down about 10-15 yards of terrace, like, by the time you got your bearings back, you know, and the game had started already again, you know, by the time you get up. And obviously Mick's goal when he was put through, and you know, we were calling for the penalty before the ball even hit the net because of he was taken out, but the bobble was horrendous. Like, you know, you could see it like from behind him. It was like, you think it come up over his head, it seemed to be that bad, you know. But
he had a lot of time to think about it going through. I'm sure that the ground.
Oh man, you know, you'd love to say it got us off our seats, but we were all standing anyway because it was a terrace, like, you know. But we were just, you know, it was brilliant, you know, because of course 1-0 is such a slender lead that you thought like these guys could get back into it, you know. Could be a mistake or a piece of brilliance, but thankfully, like, when he broke off and finished the job, it's great finish.
Sligo had to come at us, and they were coming at us hard, and I think it was Paddy Dunning headed a ball. He kind of headed it down at the edge of the box, our own box, and Sean Byrne hit it long, and I was standing at the halfway line with the centre half, and it went over our heads, and I turned and went, and you know, I had the pace to beat the centre half, and I knew he tried to actually take me down. I could feel, you know, he clipped my heels as I went by him, and I knew I was 1-on-1 with the keeper, and I was thinking to myself, oh no, this is one of those where you have to make sure you put it in. And just as I came to the edge of the box, the ball bobbled up. I just managed to clip it over him, and as I did so, I ran into the keeper, and but I just saw it nestle in the net, so I was more than happy to see that, and it was one of the highlights when you consider that, you know, for me, I had a situation where I had the nightmare where I was told I'd never play again. So for me, all of the games that I played in were just a bonus. So I just was so happy to be playing football. For other lads, it was probably, there was pressure and there was this, that and the other. And even though I got nervous and had butterflies before games and everything, I just enjoyed it so much because of having come from where I'd come from. So to see that ball go into the net was just like, you know, unbelievable. It was just a feeling that I suppose you never think you would have, you know. It was just one of those things that I'll never forget, really.
And as we know, it's a tradition, bring the cup back over Hill Street Bridge and go around the town and go around the schools. For Dundalk, man, I'm sure there was a special feeling for that.
Well, as people know, I'm a dual player. I played Gaelic and I played soccer. And it's nothing like you taking a cup or a championship over Hill Street Bridge, especially for Dundalk or Sean O'Mahony's. It was unreal, like taking a cup over, and you know. And then later on, you know, Sean O'Mahony's, as you know, we done it 3 or 4 times, Leinster Intermediate and Senior Championship show. It was fabulous. I never ever. That was the one thing I used to always say to old David. It's nothing like taking the cup over of a Sunday when you win it of a Sunday night. But it was different. See, we played, the finals were in April, and it was bright nights. When Dundalk were winning it this last 4 or 5 years, it was dark nights, and it was very, very dangerous, you know. So maybe that was the reason why they weren't taking over, as, you know, what point I'm trying to make. Yeah.
But did you make it home for the homecoming? Can you remember the
Oh yeah. Well, honestly, one bled into the other because it seemed like the boys were coming over Hill Street Bridge every year, you know. Because we weren't winning the league or winning the cup, and it was just celebration after celebration. They all just kind of bleed into each other, you know. It's hard to remember which was which, but it would have been, you know, at that time the bus would come over Hill Street Bridge, and it was usually an ABC kind of drink slurry or whatever with the sides open, and obviously health and safety didn't exist back in the 70s, you know, because we were all just bred up and jumping off it up and pulled up onto it, and how nobody was killed, I'll never know, but it was great times.
21 years later, another Crawley's lifting the cup. What did that mean to you when they
that was
lifted the cup?
Well, I have to say one thing. That was the best day in my life when David lifted the cup, because not only David lifted the cup, and I'm not being biased, I think there was 5 or 6 locals on the team, and that really was. That was the best day for me in soccer. That was the best day for me in soccer, because it was just unreal. And me, after 21 years after, one of brother of mine captain Dundalk, and I tell you, I think it'll be a long time now before it'll be another Dundalk captain, you know. I don't think that ever happened. Did that ever happen before? I don't think so. You know, and there was a good story to that. My father used to go to Croke Park every Sunday, and they'd go to the same pub every Sunday and the same seat in Dublin every Sunday, him and Sean Begley, and they went up this Sunday, and the owner of the bar says, what are you doing in here? Croke Park's not open today. And Sean Begley says, no, Mick's son is the captain of Dundalk. And he looked at him and says, you go to Croke Park every Sunday. So it was very, 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 very good always, you know, brilliant.
Great times, and as you say, probably one of the golden periods for the club.
Yeah. Well, obviously, you know, that cup win brought us into the Cup Winners' Cup, and what was like the most unbelievable feeling when Mick Fairclough scored that goal against Tottenham. It was, you know, we'd never experienced anything like that before, because, you know, you'd be watching your matches today every Saturday night, seeing all these guys, you know, like our Crooks and Hoddle, our Dealers, World Cup winners, you know, and to see them come to Oriel Park, and when Mick Fairclough scored that goal, it was just the most amazing feeling, you know. We've had it a few times since, but at that time, it was the first time feeling that like that. It was unreal.
I'd say that Dundalk team would have won 4 leagues in a row if Hilary Carlisle had stayed fit. That was it. Hilary got injured against New Zealand in an old inter-league thing against New Zealand team. Johnny Giles picked him. I think Johnny Giles picked him for him to get injured, because Hilary was probably the best centre forward in the league at the time, you know. And I think we won a league, got bet in the league, won a league, and got, you know, we lost the league by a couple of points. So we should have could have won 4 leagues in a row, that team.
So when you look at the achievements and the calibre of the players that we had, I would say it's definitely up there with any of the teams that I've known about in my experience with Dundalk.